Well, good morning, everyone. Bill Rentschler, along with reporter Bailey Bischoff in the 1011 Now streaming studio. I want to welcome everyone in. Bailey, folks at home probably don't know, but here in the building, we have a meeting every morning, every afternoon to kind of go over the news of the day, how we're going to divvy up assignments, things like that. And usually, for the past, 5-6 weeks now, you've been talking about something that's going on in the legislature. Michaela Cavanaugh filibustering something, some bill going to select committee, some bill coming out of committee or being introduced. Yes. And so you're kind of our resident legislature guru. And yesterday, I'm sitting in this meeting thinking, I probably need a refresher on my civics on how a bill becomes a law in the state of Nebraska. Again, we're a unicameral. So we're a little bit different. We don't pass the bills between the House and the Senate and back and forth and play hot potato. So I figured we'd today go over the process of how a bill becomes a law in the state of Nebraska. And you've come up with some excellent slides for us here to walk us through the process again. So take it away here, Bailey. How does a bill become a law?
Well, there's a lot of different steps, and it really dominates legislative season, and we're starting to see bills move on from the initial steps, but we'll back up from the very beginning. And all this information comes right from the Nebraska legislature website. I did not take a class in this. I just looked it up and have been soaking in that information from the website and from covering it, and we'll show you where you can learn some of this stuff on your own later.
We were hoping, I just talked to her about this yesterday, she didn't have time to come up with the Schoolhouse Rock song. You folks may remember the I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill. This is the I'm Just a Bill in the unicameral version.
Yes, maybe next session I'll have time for a song between now and then. But we'll just walk you through the first initial steps of how a bill becomes a law. A quick overview before we move on to the next slide. There's basically 8 steps, starting with being introduced, and we'll swipe over and talk about that process. Oh, there we go. I'll let you swipe.
Oh, you can swipe if you want to.
So senators can introduce as many bills as they want, but only in the first 10 days of the session. We are well past this point in the process. This session, over 800 bills and constitutional amendments were introduced. And once a bill is introduced, stand by, I guess. Once a bill, that work?
You should be able to hit that one. There we go.
All right. Once a bill is introduced, they all have to be assigned to one of the standing committees in the legislature, and that is the part where the public, people can go and
give testimony.
We cover those a lot in the beginning of the session. The last day for committee hearings is coming up at the end of this week. And then to make it out of committee and go on to the next step, the committee members have to vote. A majority of them have to vote to approve the bill. And then it goes on to the next step, which is what we're starting to see happen in the legislature now. It's just not wanting to cooperate with us.
That's okay.
So now we're seeing bills being debated in general file, which is the first time the whole legislature is able to discuss the bill.
So is this where we've been seeing, again, a lot of the filibustering?
Yes.
I know that's been going on. Again, Michaela Cavanaugh has been in the headlines with her filibustering, but this is where we are right now.
Yes, this is a handful of bills have now passed to the next step, but most everything, if it's made it out of the committee, is on general file. And that's the regular debate that we're seeing happen right now when senators are really hashing out how they feel about bills and what they think should happen with them.
Again, off the top of my head, I don't know if you know this, do you know how many bills made it out of committee?
I do not know.
Okay. I'm sure probably quite a few.
I don't know.
800 introduced. You think there's
I think that's one thing I'm wanting to look back on at some point in the session is just what percentage of those 800 bills even gets talked about.
And get onto the floor.
So maybe we'll have that story sometime. And then to pass this step, a bill has to get a majority vote unless there's a filibuster, and then it has to get a supermajority. I'll talk a little bit about how the filibuster works later on. But if it can get that 25 vote, or 33 if it's a filibuster, it then moves on to the next step.
I would say 25 is the majority. 33 is the supermajority.
But it's we'll talk a little bit more about the filibuster process later on. So after general file, and there's a step called enrollment and review, and this is the furthest any bill is at this point in the session.
Okay.
And this is basically where I think just legislative staff review the bill. If there's any amendments that were voted on, they work those into the bill and just make any technical or grammar changes.
This is when they actually like put text on paper for the bill with the amendments added in.
Yeah, it's like when it's introduced, it's kind of like a rough draft proposal, and this is when it's starting to get more official, is my understanding.
Okay.
And then we go to select file, which is basically just like general file again.
Or debate.
Yes, the legislature, again, everyone involved has another chance to talk about it, debate it, talk about amendments or make any changes, and then it has to get another vote.
Okay. To get it out of select file.
Yes.
And again, 25 majority, 33 supermajority.
Yep.
In case there's a filibuster.
Which, I mean, normally we wouldn't talk about the filibuster or supermajorities as it's something that's guaranteed to happen, but this session and even last session it was happening more and more, and it's something that we probably will see again. And then after select file, it goes back to enrollment and review, where the same thing, just any adjustments are made.
Going through the grammar of it and everything like that.
Yep.
So now this bill is almost a law.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yes. Very close. The last step is final reading, and this is where, like, if you're watching at the very end of the session, the clerk will get up and he'll read the entire text of the bill really fast, and it's like, you can't even hear what they're saying, really. That's
reading?
That's not a job I would want, is having to read pages of bills. They can waive that requirement with a vote for 30 senators, but we typically do see them reading aloud several bills.
Ooh.
And at this point, not a lot of major changes can be made, but if there's something specific that they want or a specific amendment, they can basically send it back a step.
Okay.
To select file.
Okay.
And then a final vote will happen. Most of the time, like just in what I've seen, once it gets to this point, and on most bills, typically it passes and the votes are like unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost at the finish line here.
Yes.
So if you had objections, you've already raised them in the previous steps.
Yes.
And then from there, it goes to the governor's desk.
And the governor has a chance to he could do 3 different things. He could sign it and make it a law. He can veto it, or he can just do nothing. He can decline to take any action. And then he could veto the whole thing, or he could veto specific parts of it.
Do you know if he declines to take, is that like the pocket veto where it automatically vetoes, or is that just it becomes law but the governor didn't say anything about it?
I believe, this isn't something I'm 100% sure on, but I think that it doesn't become law.
Okay, so kind of a pocket
That's something
veto.
that I should look up and find out.
Yeah, we're all learning together.
Yeah, covering the legislature every year, you'd think I would know everything by now,
Well,
but there's
it's just such
no way.
this big behemoth of things and terms and you know, colloquialisms, and you don't know what you don't know sometimes.
Yes, every day is a learning process. And if the governor does veto it, the legislature can override it with 30 senators.
30 senators.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a couple ways that I think we can hold up bills. I think that's your next slide.
Yes.
Actually, no, it's congratulations.
First
you become a
is
law.
congratulations, you made a law.
Our bill has graduated and become a law.
And then, like, the legislature's website says most bills go into effect 3 months after the legislative session ends. We've seen some COVID-related ones in the last session that were like emergency, and they went into effect at a different timeline.
Okay.
But that's the typical timeline.
Okay.
And then here's where it gets a little bit more interesting. There's different factors that can stop a bill from passing or advancing. And one of the big ones is just time. Like, with over 800 bills introduced, even in a long session, this is a 90-day session, there's just not enough time to get to everything. And that's especially true this session when we've seen filibusters happen for every single bill. Every single day has been hours and hours of debate. So a lot of things, there won't be time to get to them.
And I'm saying, we should say, they're mostly in session in the morning.
Yes.
They're not necessarily working they're working a full 8-hour day, but they're not in session in the unicameral 8 hours a day. It's probably more 4 or 5 hours.
How the schedule has worked so far, and that's going to change next week, but they'll typically from like 9 to noonish, they'll be in like select file mode, like talking about things, and then committee hearings start at 1:30.
Okay.
And so it's been split days.
And so maybe will go more
Yes.
full days.
They'll be next week starting full days and going into evenings.
Okay.
So a lot more.
A lot more.
A lot more debating. A lot more filibuster. A lot more time to filibuster if they choose to do that. There is a way to help get bills prioritized. Senators can designate priority bills. Each senator can pick one, and then committees can also designate priority bills, and the speaker can designate priority bills, and these are more likely to get talked about. They're prioritized in the schedule. So that is one way.
Okay.
And then I also, when I did an interview with this Speaker Arch about filibusters earlier in a couple weeks ago, and he talked about he said any bill that makes it out of committee and gets that committee vote can just be picked up next session. So just because something doesn't pass this session doesn't mean there's no hope for it.
Okay.
It just might take some time.
Okay.
And then something we saw yesterday is a motion to indefinitely postpone. We saw Senator Megan Hunt filed this motion in the LB 574, the transgender care bill, or the bill that would ban care for transgender youth. That is a motion that, if approved, it would suspend all further activity on the bill. It's commonly referred to as a kill motion.
Okay.
Just because after that it doesn't go on any further.
It's done.
And that can happen in committee or in the whole legislature.
Okay.
And then this is the one we've talked about more often. A cloture vote is what happens after a filibuster. So filibuster isn't an official term in the Nebraska legislature, but it's basically what happens, and it can trigger something called a cloture vote, which after debate has gone on for 8 hours, there can be a call for a cloture vote. And then this basically requires 33 senators to vote to defeat the cloture. And if you don't get those 33, then the bill stops. A debate stops and the bill doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
And then if the bill passes the cloture vote, a second vote will happen on the bill itself, and then you just need that 25. So it's this is something that I recently, just a couple of weeks ago, learned about, because it's kind of confusing. A bill got 33 on the cloture, and then it only got 31 on the vote after that. And I was like, well, how? It didn't get 33. But it just needs that 33 for the singular cloture vote.
Okay.
And then after that, it just did 25.
Majority. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all very confusing.
It is. But there's also a lot of resources to learn how to do this, and we can switch over. I can show you some of those.
Yeah. We'll step forward on the desk here. My computer went to sleep. So
basically how I've learned everything is just on the legislature's website, or talking to every staff member with the legislature is incredibly helpful as well. But I can just walk you through the website. This is the initial home page, and there's a few different options here. You can look at bills that have been a list of all the bills introduced, all the bills prioritized, hearing schedules, just anything you'd want to know basically is on this website. I'll just show a couple things. If you want to look at what the legislature is doing today, you just click on the little calendar and the agenda, and you can see what they're talking about. So right now they're just continuing to debate LB 574. And if we go back, you could also, to the home page, you can check in on the progress of specific bills on this page too. So since we're talking about 574, we can type in 574 here, search it, and it will give us all the most recent updates. So you can look at the text of the bill, you can look at all recorded votes, and just a budget, the fiscal note, you can look up how much they think the bill is going to cost the state. Any amendments, introduced hearing schedules, all that is here.
So if you wanted to know what your state senator was up to, this would be a good resource. You could kind of see where maybe your state senator has voted, or if they've been filing motions or whatever or whatnot.
Yep.
On a certain specific bill.
Yes, there's no easy way that I'm aware of to go and look up every bill that a senator has introduced, but there could be a way to do that. If you wanted to go to figure out who your senator is, there's a web page for that. And then if you're just looking for more information on this process, this is where I got all my information about. That was just on that PowerPoint, so you
go.
can look up more
Yeah.
information about each step in the legislature. This one is a popular one I use, the glossary of terms, because they say all these things that are like not English to me, and like a bracket. Like we think of a bracket as like, I don't know, something that holds something or like a
Not something
hinge.
to delay consideration of a bill.
Yes, but you can look up, you can see all these different things here. And then the
Interesting.
last one is just that I found that I think is helpful is just frequently asked questions. You can ask, like civic engagement for students.
There you go.
How do I request a legislative history? There's all this stuff that is just right there on the website. Like they really want to teach people.
Want people engaged
Yes.
in the civic process.
Yes,
That's a
every
good
single
thing.
person I've ever asked in the legislature staff is just thrilled that people are interested and want to know more. So.
Awesome. Well, I know I learned a little bit today, so thank you, Bailey, for taking us through that process again. It's one that's a good thing to know about. Again, unicameral here is a little different than every
Yeah.
state and the federal government. So an interesting process to go through. Thank you. We'll clip this. It'll be online. So again, if you missed part of it, you can go back and rewatch it. We covering anything legislature-wise later today?
Yes, we have a reporter who's at a committee hearing talking about some voter security things that a senator is introducing in a hearing, and we're keeping an eye on debate on the LB 574 as well.
And we're on day 48, correct,
Okay.
of the legislature. So we're a little more than halfway through.
Yes.
We have another
Yeah, day 48.
6 or 7 weeks to go. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more, a flurry of activity
absolutely,
over
yeah.
the next 42 days. through
Yes,
the 90-day
when I
session.
was talking with some people about like the pace of the legislature, they said that they'll really gauge, like things should really pick up and start moving faster now. So
Okay.
we will see what happens.
All right, well, we'll keep you up to date on all those. Again, as always, please keep it tuned to 1011, both on air and online, for all of your latest news, weather, and sports. Again, thank you, Bailey, for joining us today. Hope everyone has a good Wednesday.